What's going on, everybody? Welcome back, and welcome back to another episode of Off the Bench. Of course, I'm DeMarcus, your host. Thank you guys again for tuning in to this episode. Before we get started, as always, hit the like button, hit the share button, comment down below, like us on and share and follow us on all of our other social media, which is always listed down below. And as you see here in the title, this is part 2 of Sports is the Greatest. So today what we want to get into, we're going to talk about basketball. And I only really have 3 areas that I want to really kind of, focus on today. First things first. I know there's always this talk about basketball and, where the game is now versus where the game was before. So the first question I want to ask to everybody out there watching, which era was the best in the NBA? Which time? Was it the 80s? Was it the 90s? Or is it the 2000s? What do you think is the best era of basketball in general? And then, of course, the NBA as a whole. So my take on it and how I feel, it's very hard to say which era was the best. I can say that there are things I loved about each era, and I also believe that each era is not what it is if the era doesn't come before it. If you don't have what happened in the 80s with Bird and Magic and the Lakers and Boston and of course Michael coming into the league and really becoming the face of the league early in his career, the Detroit Pistons, and just the way the 80s was, and then going into the 90s, and you had Penny Hardaway, Shaq, Shawn Kemp, Gary Payton, Kobe came into the fray. Of course, Michael was still there and still really holding strong on, having a stronghold on the league. And then you go into the 2000s where Allen Iverson came in and Vince Carter, Tracy McGrady, and LeBron James, Kobe was in there too, and Amari Stoudemire, Dwight Howard, Kevin Durant, Russell Westbrook, Stephen Curry. Like when you talk about the players that played in each era, the reason why that player even came is because the era before it. So for me, it's really hard to say which is the best era of all time when it comes to players. I think every era has offered unique skill and athleticism and creativity, and each era has taken it to the next level. Now, of course, I would probably say, just because of my age and how long I've been watching basketball, I would probably say that the 90s, if I had to say, for me, where I felt that was the, I wouldn't even say best, but I would just say where the 90s were just, you saw so many, players that developed and became big names, and then you just watched the young players that came behind them really patting their game a lot behind them and take it to the next level. I would say the 90s would be that era for me, because in the 80s, the style of basketball and a lot of things that you were seeing first time has become normalized in the 90s and in the 2000s. So I would say the 90s for me, I think just because of you started to really see skill development, you really started to see skill of players, and the name of players really take off in the 90s. And then of course a lot of player fashion also too, fashion in the 90s. And then you look at how things have come back around here in the early 2000s, and of course in the late 2000s. And you watch guys each year raise the bar, each era raise the bar on, 3-point shooting. Steph Curry bringing it out to 35 feet when you had, Ray Allen and Reggie Miller, who were more, right on the 3-point line or a little bit off 3-point line, but just consistency of, being able to make those shots on a consistent level. And you had other players come behind them, J.J. Redick, Kyle Korver, Glenn Rice. You look at all these players that were known, even Dale Curry, you look at these players that were known for just shooting the ball. You saw that start in the 90s and develop even more in the 2000s and now into 2024 we are now. So I would say the 90s for me is that era that you start to see the transformation and the elevation of the skill set, the player, and the league itself, and how it became, a global sport. Of course, I think Michael had a huge impact in that with his contract with Nike, and how they were able to, take him and make him into something larger than life, something larger than the sport could ever imagine, and something bigger than the sport could ever handle. That's why you see today that everybody still goes crazy over his shoes and his name, and it reigns supreme over so many different things when it comes to the game, even though he is not the greatest champion, like I said, because there are people that have more championships than him. But as for a player, he's one of the greatest players to ever play. As for the enhancement of the game, and then of course the reason why a lot of players get off the court endorsements, why players are getting these bigger contracts now, why teams are looking at their star players the way they look at them now. I think Michael had a lot to do with that. Some might disagree, don't really matter to me, but I just believe if Michael Jordan is not in the league in the time he is in the 80s into the 90s, and then of course into the early 2000s, I don't think the league is where it is now, because the players before him wasn't carrying the torch like he did. Magic, Larry, they did a fantastic job of helping the NBA not go away, because the NBA was probably going to, dismantle and not be a league. But of course, with the rivalry between Magic and Bird in college coming into the NBA at the time it did, it saved the NBA. So they saved the NBA. Michael took it to the next level. And then, of course, these players now are benefiting from what those players did. So that's why I say each era plays an important part on why the next era became successful. So, but y'all comment down below. You let me know who you think would be or is the best era, because there's a lot of talks about, I've seen people talk about Allen Iverson versus Steph Curry. Two different players, first off, two different players. But if I had to say who I think would win that matchup, I would say Allen Iverson, just because, his skill set, lightning fast guard, athletic guard, can score anywhere on the court, but at the same time, defensively, I think he's a better defender than Steph Curry is. Now, don't get me wrong, Steph Curry ain't no slouch. He ain't gonna be no easy guard for Allen Iverson because of his constant moving throughout the floor. He don't stay still, and his threat from you cross half court, you gotta guard me, which makes it harder for the defender. But I just think Allen Iverson would put more pressure on him to have to guard, because let's be honest, Steph Curry doesn't have to really guard many people in the league. So I think that matchup would be more difficult for him than it would for Allen Iverson. But it's always cool to have those type of comparisons. But like I say, that's the thing about the eras. It's hard to really say who would dominate the other player because of the different styles of play in those different eras. But I definitely believe Allen Iverson would get the best of Steph Curry if in a one-on-one matchup. And but that's the beauty of the eras, because you can actually pull so many guys from different times and say, man, these guys could play in this NBA, and these guys could play in that NBA, which I just think just lets you know the beauty of the game and how the game has evolved and is always evolving and always getting better and never going the other way. I think each sport that you look at, whether it's baseball, basketball, football, hockey, soccer, it doesn't matter, pickleball, every year the sport just gets better and it becomes more popular and more people come in, get involved with the sport, which also makes the creativity and everything with the sport so much better. And guys always push it and raise the bar and create these moments that we can always remember. And each generation has an opportunity, each era has an opportunity to experience it. So that's my take on, the best era in the NBA. Now, we all, also comparing of two players. I know, Michael, I believe it's just hard to compare him to any player, but I know a lot of people have always compared the late, great Kobe Bryant to Michael, saying he's a carbon copy or was a carbon copy of Michael. What do y'all think? Do y'all think that that was something that's a true statement? Do you think that's a real thing? In my opinion, I don't really think Kobe was a carbon copy. Now, I know some people might say, well, hold on, Mark, that sound, I know, man, I've really thought about this question, really thought about this topic, and don't get me wrong, love Kobe Bryant, love him to death. He does show a lot of similarities to Michael with his, his grit, with his will and his want to win, and the domination and just all the things that he did on the floor, they're very close to what Michael did. But I just don't think that you can look at Michael and look at Kobe and like I say, when you go to the 80s Mike, early 90s Mike, that there ain't nobody touching him. There ain't nobody touching him. I'm sorry. I don't care who, LeBron, no matter who you put, 80s Mike into early 90s Mike, there ain't nobody touching him. There's just nobody touching him. The skill set, the athleticism, the quickness, the ability, the scoring, everything. It just, I don't see nobody being able to stand with him. So that's why I say I think Kobe has a lot of similarities, but to Michael, but he's not a carbon copy in the sense of his abilities and his skill, because Kobe in the beginning of his career wasn't very, very skillful. It took him, when he got Shaq, to start really developing. You started to really see his star power and his ability start to really expand once that happened. With Michael, you saw that out the gate when he came into the league. You just knew he's going to be a problem. He's going to be the new face. Magic and Larry move out the way. It's his league now. The man was, with his gold chains playing. When he came out of Carolina, was a dog. So he came in with that persona, with those abilities out the gate. He didn't have to really wait for the development. He was already in the midst of it. Similar to how LeBron, when he came into the league, he was already just in the right place, skill wise. And he just, small little tweaks each year has gotten better and better each year. But like I say, I just truly believe that there's just nobody that really you can say is just like Mike. Kobe has some similarities, don't get me wrong, and of course he patented his game a lot behind Mike. So I would say more of, instead of Kobe being a carbon copy, I would say Kobe just paid a lot of homage to Michael and, put the dedication in the game like he saw Michael did. So he saw the blueprint and he just followed that blueprint. And other players could do the same thing. There's a lot of other players that could have said, hey man, here's my player that I follow, that I think is the blueprint of how to be in the league. And that's what I'm gonna follow. If, like I said, with my son or, anybody that has a son, if you're talking about you playing basketball, I would say LeBron James is the blueprint of what to do. You watch the guy come out of high school, you watch the guy take care of his family, you watch the guy have no blemishes off the floor. You watch the guy each year get better and better and better, and always, develop, always know the right things to say, the things to not do. And then of course, off the field, off the court, endorsements, and then, what he's done for his friends that's been able to develop their careers around him or with him. I just think, like I say, if I'm looking at the blueprint now, I would say I would go LeBron. And then, of course, there's a few other players that I would kind of, follow or really try to, implement or duplicate. And that, like I say, but LeBron James, I think, is that guy. And I don't think that LeBron James is the most skillful player to ever watch. Now, he has skill, don't get wrong. His passing, with his of course, this, God-given abilities to, athleticism-wise, and then, of course, his leadership and what he's done for the franchise that he's been a part of. But I do believe that he is definitely the blueprint. If I'm talking about, hey, here's a player that I want my son or my daughter to watch, I'm going to have to put him in there, because Kobe was that guy and into his unfortunate death. But I think I think LeBron James now is that guy. And then there's other few guys out there too as well. But right now, I think it's LeBron James. So, all right. So for my last thing I got, like I say, in this video, is Buddy Ball in the NBA a bad thing or a good thing for the league? Now, the reason why I say Buddy Ball is because we all have watched the NBA transition to this league where, star players want to go play with other star players to have opportunity to play, in the later parts of the season, and also compete for a championship. We watched a lot of teams do that. We have watched some teams develop, their players, like the Golden State Warriors. They kind of, with Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, Draymond Green, they developed those young players into the juggernauts that they became to win the championships like they have. But a lot of players nowadays have, say, hey, I want to go play with other star players to have a chance to compete for a championship. So, and then you look at what Boston did with the big three there. You look at what Miami with LeBron, what he did with Miami. You look at a lot of people. You look at what he's doing with AD in LA. You look at a lot of moments in history, and it's not just now. It's been going on forever that players want to play with better players. Because let's be honest, when you go to any gym in America or in the world, and you go to play pickup or you go to play in a organized atmosphere, you want to play with the best players so you can win. So it doesn't seem so far-fetched for the guys in the league to want to do the same thing. Now, I understand the people out there, the naysayers that say they don't agree with that. You should want to compete and compete against the best. I agree with that. But at the same time, if you had an opportunity to put yourself in a situation where you have better players around you to help you compete, because we've all watched those players that's come in the NBA that's try to do it by themselves. You can't do it by yourself. No one has won by themselves, not even the great Michael Jordan. He's never won a championship by himself. It's very difficult, especially in a league as talented as it is every single year, every single, era, decade, generation, whatever you want to call it. When the game is just always getting better, players are always getting better, things are always changing with the game, it's very tough to do it by yourself. I mean, you look at a lot of players in the league now that's trying to do it by themselves, they're struggling because they need help. And you need to be able to also be in a market with guys that want to come play. Because I know a lot of things have been said about, why players won't go play in certain places. Because I think a lot of it has to do with the market, where it is in the country. A lot of people don't want to live in the cold or don't want to live in small markets where they're not going to have an opportunity to expand their dollars like they would if they was in LA or these other places. And I also understand how, if you are in those bigger markets, you should be able to attract players to come play for you. But I it's hard to say that buddy ball, or hard to say that, what players are doing by going to play with other great players is a bad thing for the league. I don't think so. I think it's just like anybody that's, trying to compete. You want to compete with the best. You look at, college, you look at the pros. It's a reason why the 5-star wide receiver goes to Alabama. He don't go to Indiana. It's a reason why the All-American basketball player goes to Duke. He don't go to Marquette. It's a reason behind that, because you want to go, for one, you want to go to the place where the best talent is going to be. And number two, you want to go to a place where you can, at some point, have an opportunity to maximize your dollars, or have an opportunity to be put in front of opportunities to maximize your dollars. So that's what it's about, because we have to remember this is a business. It's a sport that everybody loves to play, and everybody want to have opportunity to play on a professional level. But once you get to that level, now it's about, okay, how can I maximize my dollars? But at the same time, how can I put myself in a position to compete every single year for an opportunity in the championship environment? So that's what I look at when it comes to why guys, did what they did. And I get it. I get people that say, I've seen the videos from Mario Ellis saying that he didn't agree with LeBron James teaming up with who he teamed up with in Miami with Dwayne Wade and Chris Bosh. I get those, those old school players, or, players from the other eras of the 90s and the 80s that said, hey, man, I would never go play with Patrick Ewing. I would never go play with this person, never go play with that person. But I can't say in this time and day that we live in now that that's a bad thing, because there's a lot of great players back then that played together. Or if someone, left a team, they went and grabbed another great player from a team that they might have been competing with. I mean, Dennis Rodman leaving Detroit, going to Chicago. That's a prime example there too as well, where Michael pulled another great player from a great team to come over and help him get to the next level. The list goes on and on, but I just don't think people should be so quick to say that it's a bad thing because these players want to play with other great players. Because if you're in the gym, you're not picking just anybody in the gym. You're trying to find who's the best guy. Oh, yep, I want those 4 guys, or I want those 4 girls if you girls are playing. So everybody that wants to win wants to have the best to do it. And sometimes, now I agree, sometimes the decision on how to do it might not be the best. You know, you look at KD. I know a lot of people are always on KD neck for him, you know, leaving OKC to go play in Golden State. But let's be honest, like I say, when you watch an organization or you watch players play on a team and you see what they're doing differently than what your team is doing or what your team has been doing, you want to be a part of that. And sometimes the decision that you make to get or how you get there, people are not going to agree with it, but that's life. Not everybody's going to agree with the decision you make that might be best for you and your career, but you can't make decisions based off of what other people are going to feel. You got to make decisions based off of what you know is going to help you, you know, longevity wise for your career. So I would say buddy ball is not a bad thing, but I know some people think that it is because they look at it as like you kind of taking the easy road to get to the championship. But it's not easy because there's a lot of great players that are playing together on other teams and they're not winning every year. They're not winning every year. They're not winning every, you know, they're not having winning records and all that. And it's not true because just like those players that are teaming up, other teams are getting better. So the parity in the league is not terrible. You know, there's a lot of teams that have the big names that aren't winning games, aren't dominating, aren't going to the playoffs. You have these teams like Minnesota, like OKC that have youth and don't really have a lot of superstar power running around the court. Now, you do have some up-and-coming players like Ant-Man, who's I think is going to be, you know, one of the faces of the league here very, very soon the projection that he's on right now, if he keeps going that way, he's going to be one of the faces of the league. So there are players that are out there that have opportunity, but even him, he can't do it by himself. He's going to have someone else on the team that can help him get to the next level and get it and have an opportunity to play in a championship. So I just think, you know, the buddy ball, I get it. A lot of people don't like it. I understand it. But like I said, I can't jump on the bandwagon of saying it's just terrible for the game and terrible for the league. And anybody that says that, I respect your opinion, but I just have to humbly disagree with you because I think if anybody's in that position, you know, no matter who you are, if you have an opportunity to go play somewhere and be a part of a winning environment, you're going to choose to be a part of a winning environment versus being a part of a losing environment because we all know you can't play the game from ever. So you don't want to waste, you know, your first 10 years like a Dame Lillard. You don't want to waste a lot of your great prime years of your career in an environment where you're just not winning. And then you get to a place where you have an opportunity to win, but now it's like, man, I'm old now. So guess what? Now I'm on the other end of my career. So how much more time do I have? And now every single game and every single year really matters versus when I was 19 years old, 20 years old, 21 years old playing, and I could have been playing on a better team with better players, and I could have had the same development and enhancement in my skills, but been winning while doing it. So, you know, and I just think that's what we have to remember when it comes to why players want to go play with other great players. So, but when y'all comment down below, man, let me know what you think about that. What you think? Do you think buddy ball, or do you think, you know, players teaming up with other great players is doing a disservice to the game and is really messing up the league? Y'all let me know, comment down below. And as always, make sure before you leave this video, you hit the like button, you hit the share button, you follow us on all our other social media, my Instagram, my TikTok. I appreciate all the love that we're getting on all of our platforms. And as we continue to grow, we want y'all to be a part of the growth, and we want y'all to experience the growth too as well. So this is going to wrap up this episode. Thank you again for tuning in. But until the next episode, man, we'll see y'all here soon. Have a great day. Peace.